Today what I want to talk about is functions and methods, which is described a little bit here in your cheat sheet on page 3. So what are these things? So first of all, there's two words. There's a word called function and a word called method. And in programming, these things mean slightly different things. And so in my sloppiness, I will tend to use them both when we're talking about functions and methods. But just understand that when I say one thing, I mean, I'm in Java, these things are always called methods, and that's what I mean is method. All right, so what is a method? It's like in Mindstorms, you know about my blocks, right? So like a my block, it's used to, let me write this down. Let me not do that right now. All right, so a method encapsulates some code, right? Like a my block does, right? If you have a my block that does a turn, right? Instead of having to write that code to do the turn in every single place that you need it, you just use it once, just write it once, and you can use it in all the different places. So you don't have to write the same code over and over again. And another thing is that a method can have what's called parameters, so that it doesn't actually do exactly the same thing every time you use it. So I guess I do need to do this. All right. Share word. No, that's not what I want to do. Sorry, all right, I'm just going to do this. All right. All right, so wow. All right. Let's just get right into it. So methods have a name and a type. So here's like a really simple method right here. If you see it on my cheat sheet. All right, this print line that we've been using is a method. And what it does is it prints whatever you put inside the parentheses. This is called its parameter. It just takes whatever you put in it and it sends it out to the console. Right? We've been doing this for a few weeks. So if we wanted to we could write our own print function that does. All right. So it's kind of a pain, right? It's kind of a pain to always say system.out.println, right? Of whatever it is that we want to print out. So instead, what we can do is we can write our own print function. And it looks like this. If we want to write our own print function, it looks exactly like this. You have to say this word static, which we don't understand what it means yet. We have to use void, which we'll get into in a minute. I said that all methods have a name and a type. The name of this function is here. It's called print. And it has a type called void. So let's say that we wanted to have a function that just always prints out my name, right? So we could write a function that looks like static void print my name, and it will system.out.println of Coach Ken. All right. So these 3 lines, 10, 11, and 12, they define a function that will, every time I call it, it will print out Coach Ken to the console. So up here, I can take all this stuff out, and I can just say print my name. And I can say it again, and I can run it, and it will print my name twice and then go away. So why don't we get started, and you guys can do the same kind of a thing. Just write a function that just prints something out to the screen and then call it. Okay?
Okay.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
All right. Have you got it done? guess that's no. Okay, it should just look very much like this program here. Pranav, you mind if I look at your, if I click over here on cheerful, affectionate debuggers, will that be your code?
I created a new REPL.
Okay.
But I can copy paste it, I think. It's called bite-sized coordinated paint.
All right.
I don't know if you can get to it.
Right-sized, coordinated paint
Paint.
like that.
Yes.
All right. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Cutting, I guess. No. Let's see. Yeah, post a link to it up here.
Yeah. Um, I posted it in the chat.
Yeah, that's better. As soon as I find it.
In the Zoom chat.
Yeah, that's what I've got
Oh,
here.
okay.
Come on. Here we go. All right, that looks right. Does it work?
Yes.
Okay. Alejandra, is yours working?
Yep.
Good. Okay. All right. So this is like about the simplest function you can have, right? It's got it just every time you call it, no matter what, it's going to do exactly the same thing, right? It's going to print out something to the console. All right. So well, so methods have a name and a type. So like I say, this one has a name called my name. It's got a type called void, which I don't think we've seen before. If we look at our cheat sheet, we list the data types over here. You know, usually we've got like integer or some sort of decimal point thing or a Boolean or a string. Void is really only applies when you have functions. So there are some functions that return a value and some that don't, and we'll get into that in a minute. So that's what the void is about. But suppose that we want to be able to just print anybody's name, right? Not just my name. So in order to do that, we'd have to either write like one function for Alejandra and one for Pranav and one for me and one for everybody else, right? So we don't really want to do that. We just want to be able to print create one function that can print anybody's name, right? So in order to do that, we need to give it a parameter where the parameter will tell the function what it, you know, will basically be a variable that can be used inside the function. So we could do something like this. So just like a variable, a parameter is just like a variable. It's just that it's only available within the function. Like we can't use it outside the function for a method. So it has to have a type and a name, just like any other variable. And system.out println a name. Okay. So this will so whatever value we pass into the function, this a name, that's what value will get printed out to the console. So we use it the same way that we use print my name. We can say print a name. Only the thing is, like, now we can put some sort of value in here. So we can say, you know, print the name Fred. Instead of being a literal value like this, we could put the value into a variable. So we could have like, you know, person gets Jack, and then we can print Jack's name by doing this. Okay, so first time we print, the first time we call this print the name function, what's it going to print out?
Fred.
Right. And the second time we call it on line 8, now what is it going to print out? What do you think, Alejandro?
Jack.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. Right. So so we can run that. And so I want you to write a function now that takes a parameter. It doesn't have to print a name. It can be anything else, but just write some function that takes a parameter and something with it. Hmm. All right, you guys done?
Almost.
Okay. Done, Alejandro?
Yeah.
Good. Pranav?
I'm doing the static void part.
Okay.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, good. All right. So, do you mind if I take a look at yours, Pranav?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, let me just post the link.
Oh, that's right. Where'd it go?
Okay.
All right. Okay, good. It is almost dinner time. Okay. All right, good. So I want to get through two more examples before I let you go. So suppose that we wanted to print somebody's full name, right? This, allows you to print like, Jack, right? Suppose we wanted to have two parameters, one for like the person's first name and one for their second name, right? So we can have as many parameters as we want for a function. We can have, or for a method. We can have one, we can have no parameters like up here. We can have one parameter like here. Or we could have, 20 parameters, although that's not usually recommended, but like 3, 5 parameters is fine. So string like last name. So we can have something like that. And then we would print out their first name and then the last name. And this will not look too good, but it'll be close enough for right now. Okay. So any idea what's going to be wrong when I print this out real quick? What do you think it's going to print out? Forget about what's wrong. Just what's it going to print out when I run this function? All right, well, I'll just run it and we'll see. So it prints out Abraham and Lincoln, but there's no space, right, between the first name and the last name. So that's like not so great. So why don't you see if you can write a function that takes two parameters and does something with them, and maybe you can put a space between the first and last name too. See if you can figure out how to do that. what does this do? It's not adding two numbers, right? So it's got
Mhm.
two strings instead of numbers. So what does it do to them?
Just puts them together.
Right, exactly. Right. It's called catenation or concatenation. It takes the two strings and it just bam puts them right together. So just like you can add like 3 or 5 or 20 numbers, just by putting the numbers and then different, and then plus signs between them, you can combine as many strings as you feel like and just put plus signs between them. So let me give you just like 2 or 3 minutes here and see if you can just write a method that's got more than one parameter. How's it going, Alejandra?
Still working on it.
Okay. All right. Any luck?
It's saying I have 4 errors, but I don't know what they are
All
exactly.
right. Let me take a look at it.
Okay,
Oops, it's the wrong one.
let me just post it in the chat again.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a number of issues here. So one is need this is the start of your function here. It needs to be right now. It's inside. Here's what you've got. You've got something called a class that's out here. Balance the braces, and then you've got one function here, right? And you're trying to write this function inside the other function, so it needs to be outside this function here. Whoops. Okay. Another thing is that you've got a semicolon here like a statement, but this is actually the start of your function. So the
Oh.
function needs to have braces like that. And this might work. Good. Okay. So you solve the space problem by actually putting the space in the value, which is fine. That works. Another way to do it would be to, but you would have to, like if you call this function 100 times, right, you'd have to remember to do that every time. So that might be kind of hard. So another way that you can do it is just right in here. Whoops. Right, you can just put it in the middle of your string right there and run that. All right. Okay. All right. One more thing before we get going. So these, you can think of a function as, or a method as being sort of a machine, right? It's got a name. So you got a name for your machine, like a variable. It's got a name and it's got a type, right? And it also has code and parameters. So you can think of it as a machine, like a car. Like these methods here are kind of like cars, right? You give a car some gas, or like this one, you just like hop in somebody's car, and they take you to wherever they want to take you. Here, it's just gonna like print out the same thing, no matter what happens, you know, no matter what you do. Here, you're actually like giving the car some input, like you know, the car needs some gas, right? So we give it some gas, and now it'll do, or we give it some directions, right? Like here we're driving, we tell the driver we want to go to the restaurant or to the grocery store or something like that, and now it'll take us to wherever it is that we say you want to go, right? And here we're giving it sort of more complex information. We're giving it not just, you know, that I want to go to the grocery store, but that, you know, here's the way I want to go. I want to go by this road, not the other road, right? So these things are like a car. We can also write functions that are more like an ATM machine or something, where like you give it something and it gives you something back. So an ATM machine, you give it your debit card, and you press the right buttons and give it the password or whatever, right? And it spits out some money for you. So you give it something and it gives you something back. And so a function like that might be something that would compute area of a rectangle, right? So we can have static. Now instead of void, this is a function that's going to actually return us something. The void means that it's not returning us any value. But this area function, what we want to give it the height and width, and we want it to give us back the area of the rectangle, and that's going to be, everything's going to be integers. So we'll just say that it's returning an integer, and we'll give it a name like area. Okay, And now it needs two parameters. We need a height and a width. Any suggestions how we do this? Anybody want to yell something out? So here we're giving here's a function called print full name, right? And it's got two variables. One's called first name and it's a string, and one's called last name and it's a string. We want to give this one two variables also called height and width. So we'll give them two names, height and width. What's wrong with our function definitions? Why do I have these red squiggles here? Any guess? These things are like what are two things that a variable has in Java? It's got a name and
Oh, type.
right, exactly. So I haven't told the computer what type of data is inside these two variables. So we want an integer, so you need to say int here, and what else do I need to do? I need to also give this one a type. So what should I say? What's the type of data that's going to be in width? Very similar to height.
Another integer?
Yeah, right. Okay, good. So now we've got the type of value of data that we're returning. So now our function has a name and a type, and it's got two parameters, and now we have to give it the code, which we put inside curly braces. And then we'll have name, type, two parameters, and now for it to return a value, we have to use this new keyword that you haven't seen before called return. And basically, we just want to return the height times the width. So height times width. Okay. So with this, so now we've created a machine or a method called area that we give a height and a width, and the code inside the method computes the area of a rectangle with this height and width and returns the value. So what we can do is something like up here, we can say area equals, let's see, house, this area of house gets area of, let's say we have a really, just a rectangle for a house, and let's say it's like 40 feet by 50 feet. So this, what's it unhappy about? Oh, I can't multiply, I might have to just provide it. Okay, right. So, and then we can print it out. We can say system.out area of house. Our house is plus square. All right. So this calls the area function with the two parameters, the height of 40 feet and a width of 50 feet. Okay, area. It takes the return value, puts it inside this new variable called area of house, and then we print that out in our print statement here.